Welcome to the Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods here at City Hall. My name is Sheila Miles. I serve as the president of the Wright Avenue Neighborhood Association. This forum will be recorded and broadcast several times on City Cable TV, which is Channel 11, before the November 6th election. To avoid bias, we ask our panel members to work outside their ward. For example, a Ward 1 resident will question Ward 6 candidates, etc. Candidates will be seated as you are in the director's chairs in ballot order. The question panel will also be seated in that area, made up of members of the coalition as well as volunteers from the Clinton School of Public Service. Each candidate will have 1 minute to open, 1 minute to close, and 1 minute to reply to each of our 4 questions. The same question will be given in turn to each candidate in that race. For fairness, 1 reply first for the first shift with each question, the one giving the first opening statement will not make the first closing statement. Now we would like to introduce our timekeeper and our panelists.
I'm Kathy Wells, the timekeeper.
Ben Washington, Clinton School of Public Service.
Ben?
I'm Annie Abrams, immediate past president of the Coalition of Neighborhoods.
Now we will begin with the opening statement, and we will begin with Mr. Schwartz.
I am Glenn Schwartz, candidate for mayor of Little Rock. Mayor Schwartz be with you. I am a college graduate and a 30-year resident of Little Rock. And I'm qualified to be mayor because, well, I know parliamentary procedure and I can run. I mean, what does the mayor do? He runs the city director meetings in this very room. And I'm qualified to do that. It is through parliamentary procedure that the group mind is heard. And I have the training to run these meetings succinctly and well. But it's about the issues for me. I am the legalization candidate for mayor. If the state legislature will not change these bad laws, the people of Little Rock will. I will immediately decriminalize marijuana in Little Rock and stop anybody else from going to prison for a marijuana possession crime. I will provide recycle services to all of the citizens of Little Rock. I've been in recycling. I was a recycle center manager and an owner.
Time.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sabin.
My name is Warwick Sabin, and I'm running for mayor because I think we all know we have a great city here in Little Rock, but that we have yet to meet our full potential. And one way we can achieve that potential is by building strong neighborhoods. And there are several ways to do that. First, we need to make sure we reduce the crime rate in Little Rock, and we need to get back to community policing, meaning that we have a police presence on the streets and sidewalks in every neighborhood in the city of Little Rock. We need to attend to our public schools and make sure no matter where you live in the city of Little Rock, you know you can send your kid to a great public school. We need to make sure we're creating new jobs and small businesses and growing small businesses in every neighborhood in the city. We need to attend to infrastructure, making sure that streets, sidewalks, parks, and playgrounds are equitable in every part of our city so that we're ensuring a great quality of life for everyone. We need to talk about mobility and how we connect the city so it's easy to get around. All of these things are so important, and they all come back to building strong neighborhoods in every part of the city, and that's going to be a big priority for me as your next mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Good morning. My name is Frank Scott Jr., born, raised, and still reside in Southwest Little Rock. I'm a product of Little Rock Public Schools. I'm an associate pastor, a banker, a former senior advisor to Governor Mike Beebe, and a former state highway commissioner. The reason why I'm running for mayor of my hometown is because I want to unify our city. Not only unify our city, I want to make certain that we secure our neighborhoods, that we make education a true achievement here in the city of Little Rock, but also have jobs growth for all, and to make certain that we engage our youth to make certain they reach their full potential right here in our city. It's time to have a leader that can truly cast this vision, set comprehensive strategies, and execute. That's what we need in our city right now because we are at a distinct crossroads, and it's time to move from being disconnected to connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curris.
Good morning. I'm Baker Curris. I am a product of the Little Rock School District, at least for a while. I started school here when I was a small child. served on the school board 12 years and was superintendent of schools here in Little Rock for 14 months. Got a background in business and in law. I've lived here for almost 50 years. I've practiced law and been in business in this community for almost 40 years. I've been a community volunteer in this city for 40 years. And I have the background, the training, the experience, the drive, and the ability to innovate with a proven track record of accomplishment. This is a job that's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of innovation. Also going to take someone who knows how to get things done. I've administered budgets that are $100 million bigger than the city budget. I've made all the hard decisions when hard decisions have to be made. I'm accountable, and I'm a representative of this community who wants to simply serve. I'd appreciate your vote on November the 6th.
Thank you. Mr. Tolliver?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Vincent Tolliver. I'm a proud resident of Ward 1. I'm running for mayor because of people. Our philosophy is simple: people first. Our campaign is steeped in fairness, equality, justice, and service. I'd like to take my opening statement to have a moment of reflection and address a recent poll that was released recently by Talk Business and Politics, Hendrix College. The issue in that poll is it polled 498 people. 34% of those people were undecided. However, the ensuing headlines after the poll cast this race into a three-person race. What I think that did is it disrespects the candidates and it disrespects the voters. So, residents of Little Rock, I'd like you to look at that poll. I'd like you to question the people that conducted the poll, because what I believe in is fairness. What I know the residents of Little Rock believe in is fairness.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our questions for our panelists. Our first panel question will be directed to Mr. Sabin to answer first.
All right. Little Rock Police are assigned to community policing on and off, leaving advocates doubtful this approach truly is supported. Do you believe in community policing? How would you implement community policing?
Well, that's a great question, and community policing really is the first part of my law enforcement and public safety platform as part of my campaign. And the reason why is because community policing works so well every time it's in place in the city of Little Rock. I live in the neighborhood of Capitol View. I've been in the same house for 14 years, and we had a COPP officer everyone knew named Officer Crace, and he was able to build better relations with the community, respond more effectively when incidents happened. He could prevent crime from happening by diffusing situations, and this was the case where we had community police all over the city. And if it's a strategy that works, we need to make sure that we have it in every neighborhood in Little Rock. And so, quite simply, the answer to your question is I will make sure that I work with the police chief and the rest of city government to ensure that community policing is our priority, that we are assigning officers accordingly. We have the budget to cover that. What we had, unfortunately, over the last few years were vacancies in the police department and reassignments of officers like Mr. Crace outside of their neighborhood policing responsibilities.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I firmly believe in community policing. I ask and invite everyone on the panel today, as well as the viewership, to please go to frankscottjr.com, where we have very laid out a deep and thoughtful public safety agenda that shares our community policing initiatives and vision. What does that vision look like? Number one, now that we do have a fully staffed police force at 593, we firmly believe that this city, which is 124 square miles, has different flavors of crime in each area of the city. And it's time to increase our police force and make certain that our Little Rock Police Department has the full resources that it needs. That's why we call for an increase in it by 593 to 700, which is an increase of about $10 million to the budget. We firmly believe if safety and crime is a true issue in our city, our budget should reflect that. But not only do we have that as part of the public safety agenda, we also have career ladder programs for our police officers that make certain we show our honor and appreciation towards them, and also a citizens review committee where we can handle police misconduct and police brutality from an independent citizens commission. I invite everyone to please go to frankscottjr.com to look at our public safety agenda for more detail.
Thank you. Mr. Curris?
Well, of course, we've had community policing in our budget and in our plan. If you look at our budget, or if you look at the pillars and the city manager's work plan, it shows community policing. It's been there for a long time. So the notion that we're somehow going to start community policing or have programs for community policing really is misplaced. What the problem has always been is we've balanced our budget by having vacancies in the police department, and there is no more money. There simply is no more $10 million to be found in a bag anywhere to start a new police program. What we need to do is find out if 593 officers and the number of officers on the street is sufficient to allow us to solve the problem before we ever expand. And then the second thing we need to do is execute a budgetary plan that involves growth, because that's where it all comes down. If you want to have community policing, which is wonderful, we've done it for years, we haven't done it correctly since we've cut all these officers, we've got to get on top of this budget, we've got to make it happen that way, and then we've got to understand that we can all work together as a community, which is really the philosophy of community policing.
Thank you. Mr. Tolliver?
Of course, I support community policing, and I'm very interested in the process. What does that look like? In our city, we have 12 neighborhood resource centers. So I call for a plan where where police officers would meet with neighborhood resource centers, meet with neighborhood associations and the presidents of those neighborhood associations, meet with community leaders in the city so that trust can be built from within. Because when you have police officers that live outside of the city, not all, and some who come into the city perhaps with a chip on their shoulder, there's no trust there. So I want to get to the root of it, and the root of it is trust. The root of it is also knowing the communities in which you serve and having relationships and building relationships with the people that live in those communities. So I am a firm believer in community policing, but I believe in a very methodical way in terms of implementing police community, and it all involves neighborhood associations and neighborhood resource centers, which are already in place.
Time.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
Well, I will make it unanimous and support community policing. I live in Wakefield Village, and we had a policeman that was a community policeman for like 10 or 15 years. What I liked about it was he was riding a bicycle. And he would get out, and this guy was in good shape, and he'd get out and ride a bicycle and meet the residents of the community, and, you know, he would get to know, you know, the people that are important to the community. He might also be getting to know the bad guys, you know, the people that have elected to join the dark side. So they really get to know the community when they work out of the alert centers. And I was also president of the local neighborhood association, the Wakefield Neighborhood Association, and our biggest meetings were when the community policeman would give like a talk to the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will ask our panelists to ask the next question, and the first responder to that question will begin with Mr. Scott.
Land developers are pressuring the city to extend sewer service beyond city limits, reversing the long-held policy to add sewer lines only in annexed areas. Is this a good idea? How will this change impact our managing city growth?
Thank you for that question, Mrs. Abrams. I think first and foremost, we have to recognize that our city does not have a comprehensive urban plan. We have to have a true vision for how we want to see our city to grow and move forward. I think that's the first step. And then the second step is, after we have a comprehensive urban plan with our city, we have to have a comprehensive infrastructure improvement plan to understand what areas and which types of infrastructure that we need to put in place. For instance, in Southwest Little Rock, there's a greater need for water and sewage. In East Little Rock, there's a greater need to pay attention to the debilitating housing and the lack of sidewalks and roads. But also in the central city, we have to do a better job of revitalizing the community as well. And so before we can really start making those type of decisions, I think we have to get back to the basics by having a true comprehensive plan that we have not had in this entire history of this city. And then once moving from that comprehensive plan to a comprehensive infrastructure improvement plan, which will call and give us a true roadmap of how we want to grow the city, how we want to build the city and develop the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curris?
Well, the extension of sewer service is the single most important and determinative factor of urban density. You can have urban density only with sewer service, given the soil conditions that exist here. And most people maybe don't know that right now we're undergoing a study in the extraterritorial jurisdiction to determine how we want to extend utilities. We provide water service, of course, in a comprehensive way in a 3-county area through CAW, Central Arkansas Water, yet sewer service is provided by municipalities like Little Rock. So yes, we must study this issue. We also have issues with respect to pumping and gravity sewers, very technical. But I'm not in favor of extending sewer service into an area until we comprehensively determine whether we can likewise handle the school population and where they're going to go to school, how we're going to police that area, how we're going to provide other city services such as fire. All of these things have to be determined in advance and planned very carefully with very difficult policy decisions, especially if we get into
Time.
the next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tolliver?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Abrams. I'm not in favor of extending sewer services primarily because we have pressing infrastructure needs that exist in the city already, and I think we need to get on top of the existing infrastructure needs like drainage and sewer. There was a report by Arkansas Community Institute released in August of 2012, and what that report showed us very clearly is which wards need sewer services and drainage the most, which wards were in the highest need of sewer services and drainage service infrastructure needs. And those wards were identified as wards 7, wards 1, and wards 2. So we really need to get a hold of, we need to get on top of the existing infrastructure needs in the city before we can talk about extending sewer services outside the city.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
I would be opposed to extending sewer services to beyond the city limits. But let's talk about the city limits. I think one of the candidates just mentioned we are 120 square miles. And I've been looking at the map of Pulaski County. The city of Little Rock takes up about half of the county. I think that, I believe that we will have dramatic growth in the next 30 years as people come up as refugees from sea level rise and stuff. So we need a plan Little Rock is going to take up all of Pulaski County and may extend onto the surrounding counties that are covered by Central Arkansas water. So I see one day Little Rock being a city that covers all of Pulaski County and some of the other counties around it.
Thank you, Mr. Sabin.
Well, thank you. It's a great question, Mrs. Abrams. And I think the issue that we're facing here in Little Rock is that over the last several decades, we've grown geographically in that we've stretched ourselves out, mainly to the west, but we haven't grown in population. We really haven't grown in terms of jobs and economy, which means we're basically just stretching ourselves thin. We're making it more expensive to extend city services in the current environment. And so we need to make sure that when we're seeing growth being proposed for certain areas, that we're assessing it quantitatively, that we're measuring it, that we know what the costs are going to be, which is why, right now I certainly wouldn't support extending sewer service beyond the city limits. And I think we have to have a realistic approach, and we have to do things like have a master plan for the city that prioritizes, our infill areas, our oldest neighborhoods, and making sure that we're paying attention to the infrastructure there, because ultimately it's more economical to do development in places where you already have infrastructure than constantly trying to take a pie and spread it ever thinner. And so I think, we can learn lessons from other cities around the country in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our third question, and our panel will ask that question, and we'll ask Mr. Kuris to be the first to respond.
Scientists just issued the warning that climate change is coming faster than realized. They called on governments and individuals to change habits. Individuals are urged to drive electric cars or use public transit or conduct business by video conference or add to home insulation to cut heating and cooling consumption. The new Nobel Prize for Economics winners examined unintended effects from economic activity and how they affect growth in the long term. If elected, how do you think Little Rock functions will be changed 10 years from now?
Would you say the last part of that question again before my time starts? How do Little Rock function? Say
If-
that. I'm sorry, having a little difficulty. I think everybody is perhaps hearing you. If you wouldn't mind speaking into the mic. Thank you so
If
much.
elected, how do you think Little Rock functions will be changed 10 years from now?
Well, the functions in a city like ours are going to change every day, and they should be changing every day towards sustainability, towards living smaller, living local, using more renewable energy sources, taking advantage of the natural amenities that are here with respect to our recreation. So much of what we do that increases our carbon footprint involves long periods of travel to places that really aren't so much different than exactly what we have here. And I believe in sustainability. Our sustainability efforts have been cutting edge in Little Rock, but they need to grow. We need to have more interaction with U.S. Green Building Council and people who are really into and understand how to build structures that are sustainable, that aren't these throwaway structures that we build quickly and then get rid of. I see that happening. I think we need more solar energy. I think we're going to get very quickly to at least a non carbon-based electric generation in our cities. Some of it's still going to be nuclear.
Time.
Thank you. Mr. Tolliver?
You know, I think as we move into the future, thank you for the question, number one, Ben. As we move into the future, there's nothing more important than making sure that our city is sustainable. That impacts economic, it impacts residents who want to move to the city, it impacts companies that are looking to relocate. So renewable energy is very important. I think that we need to focus on walkability trails in the city. I think we need to work with our parks and recreations to make sure, for example, that we have enough recyclable garbage cans in the parks. I also would like to see the city move to a situation where we are providing more garbage cans in neighborhoods, because as we campaign and go throughout the city, I don't think that there are enough garbage cans on streets in various neighborhoods, because if it were, it would encourage people to use them, and so we would have less litter. So I'm very much in a favor and a proponent of sustainability. I'm very much in favor of a city that is green friendly, and you have
Time.
and walkability is high. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Swartz?
Thank you for that question, Ben. It's one of the reasons I'm running for mayor. I am from Florida back in the 70s and stuff, and I've come here. I'm telling you one of the reasons why. I am the first refugee from global warming and sea level rise. I decided 30 years ago that I would not spend my time, with property and put building up on a property in a state where all the coastal cities may very well be underwater in the next 40 or 50 years. I am predicting, I've come here to warn the people of Little Rock, that there will be, if the sea level rises by like 20 or 30 feet, there will be tens of millions of Americans who will be looking to move to higher ground. And Oklahoma City and Little Rock, Memphis, Huntsville, some cities, these are all going to be candidates for several million person increase. Now, we can look at it like a victim. Oh, my God, these people are all coming to Little Rock. Or we can look at it as an opportunity to assimilate them, find them jobs, et cetera.
Thank you. Mr. Sabin?
Well, how Little Rock functions 10 years from now is very much going to be determined by the leadership that we have. Because right now we have so many opportunities to be innovative in this regard. Right now in Little Rock, you basically need to own a car to get around. We need to change that. We need to make it so that this is a bikeable, walkable city, because that's where people want to live in the 21st century. If you look around the country, cities are incorporating technology to make city services more efficient. I mean, we still have coin-fed parking meters in Little Rock, whereas most cities now you can do it on your phone and make it a lot easier for people to do simple tasks like that. When it comes to recycling, we're going backwards right now. We just found out we're not going to be able to recycle glass. We need to make more positive steps going forward to make sure that we're a more environmentally sustainable city, that we're more energy efficient, that we are prizing mobility, and all of the things that, again, make a city more efficient and more attractive for people, again, who are making decisions about where they can live when they can live anywhere else in the country.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
For Little Rock to chart a course of forward movement and complete change for sustainability, economic development, and overall quality of life, we have to have a leader that's going to be able to have a multifaceted approach to address all of those key priorities and policies. So, yes, I'm in complete favor of a more sustainable city, but to have a more sustainable city, you have to cast a vision forward. You have to have a complete, comprehensive urban plan that includes sustainability a part of it. And as we have a more sustainable city, we'll have a more forward-thinking city as it relates to jobs development and the types of jobs that we recruit and sustain here in our city right now. And I think that's what we have to do to move forward, is to have a true leader that's going to cast that type of vision, have those type of strategies, and go execute. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move forward to our fourth question, and we will, once the panelists ask this question, we'll ask Mr. Tolliver to respond first.
Thank you.
Sidewalk maintenance by law is the responsibility of the homeowner, yet many areas of our city lack sidewalks for various reasons. Sidewalks are part of the city transportation network and required in new subdivisions. Would you budget sidewalk maintenance dollars annually to eventually cover the entire city?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Williams. I don't know that I would budget specifically for sidewalks because we need to work within our existing infrastructure budget, number one. Number two, we need to make sure we're doing better jobs throughout the city as it relates to infrastructure. When I ride along Roosevelt, for example, there are pockets and stretches of Roosevelt without sidewalks, which of course isn't safe. When I ride around or try to bike along Cantrell, for example, particularly in that area between Arkansas Department of Heritage and Dillard's, there's no way to safely bicycle there. So I think that there are existing infrastructure needs, Ms. Williams, that should be attended to. I'm just not sure if budgeting specifically for sidewalks is the answer. I think that we know already where sidewalks are needed. I just think we need to do the job of completing it.
Thank you. And by the way, this is Miss Annie Abrams.
And you know what? I apologize, Ms. Abrams. Now, you know I know your name too well, so I apologize, Ms. Annie Abrams.
We do get mixed up sometimes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Swartz?
Yes, sidewalks and bike paths are a very important part of the vision that I see for the future of Little Rock. You know, if I mentioned a minute ago there might be millions of people, 3 or 4 million people might want to move to Little Rock in the next 30 or 40 years. We can't put them all on a half acre of land with a $500,000 house on. There's just simply not enough land in Pulaski County to accommodate a larger metropolis. I envision a very dense inner city and then villages of more dense housing, like 40-story buildings and stuff, and around a central plaza of like a half a square mile where cars won't even be allowed. It'll be all sidewalks and all bike paths, and cars will have to use like the service entrance to provide services, or if you want to, have your car in a parking deck. So yes, in these new villages that I foresee going out, and so we can expand this city without increasing our carbon footprint. And the main deal with that is going to be
Time.
sidewalks.
Thank you. Mr. Saban?
Well, the answer to your question is yes, and I actually don't think it's an unreasonable goal to say, we want to have a moonshot, a priority of trying to have sidewalks in every part of our city. And we can consider that as we're looking to renew the sales tax that is directed towards infrastructure. And the reason why we need to do that is for two reasons. One is obviously mobility, just the opportunity for people to get around. And I know we're all knocking doors right now, and so we are intimately familiar sometimes with the lack of sidewalks, but at least we can walk. When we're talking about building an inclusive city, we need to think about the disabled. We need to think about people pushing strollers. We need to think about young people who are not old enough to drive, and seniors who either can't drive or don't want to drive. We need to create a city that's truly connected and gives people the true freedom and mobility to move around the city. And also, this is the kind of city that people are seeking to live in now. People are making choices to live in places where they don't have to own cars. And if we can connect our city with sidewalks and make it safe for people to walk to school, to walk to work, we'll have a better city as a result.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Mrs. Abrams, in my frank discussions in Petaway, Ponderosa, or even Park Street, many times it comes up the conversation, why are we spending so much money on bike lanes when we need to have a sidewalk first? So to answer your question is yes, we need to budget sidewalks, but I also want to go a step further, and that goes into my comprehensive infrastructure improvement plan. We have to have a holistic approach and understand what's really wrong with our city as it relates to infrastructure, because it's more than just sidewalks, and we do need that for a firm foundation for our children and for all of those that are living in the city of Little Rock. But we also have to focus on water and sewer. We also have to focus on true roads, and we also have to focus on public transit and things of that nature. So I would call for a dedicated budget to sidewalks, but also we need to have a true infrastructure improvement plan to dictate our city as we move forward with a true vision and strategies as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Curris?
Well, thank you. I would budget the money, and I know where to find it. I think you can get enough money. It's not a huge amount of dollars, but every year we ought to budget some money for sidewalks out of the operating budget. And most of you in here know that we have budgeted capital improvement money, $4.5 million. I don't know where everybody thinks that money went, but it went to sidewalks. It's in the 3/8-cent sales tax project. And so we built a lot of sidewalks, but we're not getting there with this special funding, this one-off funding through bonding. We need to have every improvement within the right-of-way where sidewalks are built within the street right-of-way, either maintained by the city or built by the city. It would encourage infill development in the areas where we have lots and lots of wonderful infrastructure. And it's also essential not just for people on strollers, but active retireds, millennials, all of us like to stroll and walk. Don't confuse sidewalks with bike paths. They're completely different, and they're not antithetical to one another, but they're not at all really good to use in tandem. It's dangerous for one thing, but also they're not suited to one another. But sure, we need to budget.
Time.
Thank you. Now we will ask for your closing statements, and we will begin with Mr. Saban.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this forum, and it's a great opportunity for us to talk about rebuilding our neighborhoods and revitalizing our neighborhoods. I think, one thing I've learned in 6 years in the state legislature, representing a very diverse group of neighborhoods in the central part of our city, as well as during the year and a half that I've been campaigning for mayor, is that there are great disparities that exist in our city, just inequities in how we spend our money in different neighborhoods and how we present educational opportunities, how we police our streets, how we focus on economic development, and how we attend to issues like mobility. And I think there's great opportunity for us if we have a true neighborhood strategy where we're going into neighborhoods and listening first and foremost to the neighborhood associations and the people on the ground about what they would like to see and let them direct the future of those neighborhoods. But then as a city, become true partners, prioritize equity, and help everyone understand how we're going to be much better if everyone does better in every part of our city. And that's a message that a mayor can uniquely bring, and that's what I plan to do as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Thank you for the opportunity. As a son of this city, from south of 630, I truly understand the diversity of our city, the identity of our city, and the true need for a leader that's going to cast a vision that's going to unify our city. It's time that we unite the city, that we secure our neighborhoods, that we focus on educational achievement for everyone in the city, jobs, growth, and engage our youth, make certain they reach their full potential right here in our city. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's time to change this city. If you're looking for someone that's going to change this city and move it with a true forward movement that's going to truly unite the city, I'm the person to do that, along with others that are behind this campaign to move this campaign forward. I ask that you vote for Frank Scott Jr. on November the 6th. Early voting starts on October the 22nd. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Curris.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. And neighborhoods are the lifeblood of our city. I've been in neighborhoods a lot lately on my bicycle, but I've been in neighborhoods a lot for the last 40 years. And neighborhoods drive everything that happens in our city that's valuable. They drive school performance, they drive retail sales, they drive sales taxes and property taxes. Everything that we need is found in a wonderful neighborhood with a sense of place. And that's what I know how to do. That's what I've been doing. I've worked in schools, I've worked in neighborhoods, and I've worked in our city for the last 40 years, unifying people, building people, bringing people together. And I've got a different skill set too. I understand how to finance these things and how to work with others to get things done. That's what I did at the school district, where we built new schools and added pre-K seats and empowered people to make things happen that were all good and positive for everyone in our city, from every corner of the city. And I'm on fire for this job. I really want to serve. I don't want to do anything else. I'm not moving up. I'm moving into that office with the idea that I'll be in the community every day serving people.
Time.
Thank you. Mr. Tolliver.
Thank you. This has been a great opportunity to address important issues in the city, but I would be remiss if I didn't extend my profuse apology to the great Miss Annie Abrams for calling her the wrong name. I had another icon in mind, and that's Miss Mary Louise Williams, so I apologize, Miss Abrams. My name is Vincent Tolliver. I am a former U.S. Congress Democratic nominee. I'm running for mayor of Little Rock for one reason and one reason only, and that's people. Our philosophy is simple. Our principles are basic: fairness, service, equality, and justice. When you elect Vincent Tolliver as a mayor, you will elect someone who has your back. You will elect someone who wants every resident in this city to wake up in the morning and know and feel that the mayor and the city is rooting for him or her. Elect Vincent Tolliver on November 6th. Early voting begins October 22nd, and you will elect a mayor that has your back.
Time.
Thank you. Mr. Swartz.
I am Glenn Schwartz, a legitimate candidate for mayor of Little Rock. May the Schwartz be with you. Okay, I'm running on 3 important issues. I will right away decriminalize marijuana in Little Rock and focus our law enforcement criminal justice on violent and real crime. I will provide recycle services to all of the people of Little Rock, not just those that live in houses. I even brought a copy of my utility bill. And hidden in this utility bill, which is quite a significant bill now, it's up to like $65, $70. But hidden in there is a $5 tax that's levied on every house in the city for recycle services. So houses have to pay a tax to do it. And as people who live in apartments and condos don't get any access to recycle service, I will change that within my first year of office, give them all opportunities to recycle and reduce the waste stream to the city dump. And I'm going to prepare this city for exponential growth. I believe in global.
Time.
Is that time? Okay.
Thank you. You have just heard from the mayoral candidates for the city's mayor's race. Thank you, candidates, for participating in the Forum for the Little Rock Neighborhoods program.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.